It feels like cold plunging is everywhere, right? It's gone from this kind of fringe biohacking thing to something you see all over your feed. But here's the thing, we're past the point of asking if it works. The real question now is, how do you actually do it right? So let's just dive right in. 55-degree water before your morning coffee? I know, it sounds kind of crazy, right? But for years, this has been the secret weapon for elite athletes and, those hardcore biohacker types. And what's really cool is that the science is finally catching up, and it's telling us a fascinating story about what that shock of cold actually does to your body and your mind. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into the science-backed benefits. Then, we'll talk about why the protocols are different for women. Super important stuff. We'll compare plunging to a bath or a shower. And finally, we'll get practical and talk about choosing a tub for your home. All right, let's get straight to the science. We're going to talk about the real, measurable benefits, but, and this is a big but, we also have to talk about the caveats. It's so important to understand the risks and know who should probably take a step back. Okay, first things first, let's get our terms straight. When we're talking about a cold plunge, what does that actually mean from a scientific standpoint? Well, it's officially called cold water immersion, and the definition is pretty specific. You're submerging your body in water that's at or below 59 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 15 Celsius, for at least 30 seconds. That's the magic number. That's the threshold where all the good stuff starts to kick in. 29%. I mean, just think about that for a second. This isn't some small study. A major review in a journal called PLOS One found that people who regularly practiced cold exposure took 29% fewer sick days from work. That's a huge testament to what this can do for your immune system. And what about for recovery, after a tough workout? Well, a big meta-analysis just confirmed it. Just 10 to 15 minutes in that cold water can significantly dial down post-exercise soreness and even measurable muscle damage. This is exactly why you see so many pro athletes making this a non-negotiable part of their routine. But it's not just physical. The mental benefits are honestly just as powerful, and they happen almost instantly. Research out of the University of Oregon showed that even a single session can lower your heart rate, your blood pressure, and that means stress hormone, cortisol. Plus, it gives you a measurable boost in your mood that can last for hours. Okay, but let's pump the brakes for a second, because we have to be super responsible about this. And the crucial point here is that cold plunging is not for everyone. For one, you get a temporary spike in inflammation right after you get out. And look, if you have any kind of heart issue, high blood pressure that isn't under control, or if you're pregnant, you absolutely need to steer clear of this. The rule is incredibly simple. Talk to your doctor first. No exceptions. Now, this is a really important point that often gets missed. When we talk about how to do this, the protocols, it is definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. For women in particular, the approach needs to be more nuanced because your body's response to cold stress literally changes throughout the month due to hormonal fluctuations. So what does that actually look like? It all comes down to timing it with your menstrual cycle. During the follicular phase, that's roughly the first 14 days, your body is actually more resilient to cold. So going for 2 to 3 minutes is great. But then, in the luteal phase, the second half of your cycle, your sensitivity to cortisol goes up. So the advice here is to pull back a bit, maybe just 1 to 2 minutes so you don't accidentally make any PMS symptoms worse. So what's the big takeaway for women? Simple. Cold plunging is an amazing tool for getting rid of soreness between your training sessions. But, and this is key, it's probably not the best idea to jump in right after a strength workout. Studies have found it helps with soreness, for sure, but it doesn't actually help you get stronger any faster than just resting. Okay, so maybe you're thinking, all right, I'm intrigued, now what? Let's get into the practical side of things and break down the different ways you can actually do this at home, from a dedicated tub all the way down to just using your shower. All right, this chart really lays it all out pretty clearly. You've got your purpose-built cold plunge tub. The big pro there is consistency and filtration. It's always ready to go, perfect for building a real habit. Then there's the DIY ice bath. Yeah, it's cheap and it's a great way to just try it out, but man, is it messy and inconsistent. And finally, the good old cold shower. Zero setup, which is awesome, but you're just not going to get the same level of benefits. And really, this all leads to a pretty clear conclusion. Think about the friction of the DIY method. Running to the store for bags of ice, getting the temperature right, cleaning up the mess. It's why most people just give up. A dedicated tub, on the other hand, is like building infrastructure for a new habit. The ice bath, that's more of a one-time experiment to see if you even like it. So if you're ready to start, how do you actually do it without, totally freaking out your system? The key thing to remember, and the evidence is super clear on this, is that consistency is so much more important than extremity. You really don't have to suffer to get the benefits. So here's your starting game plan. Get the water somewhere between 50 and 59 degrees. Your goal is just 30 to 60 seconds to start. For women, you might find you're comfortable with 1 to 2 minutes, even from the beginning. The most important part? Focus on your breathing. Slow, steady inhales and exhales. That initial gasp reflex, it'll pass in about 20 seconds, I promise. Try to do this 3 to 5 times a week. And what are you working towards? Well, the evidence-based sweet spot seems to be a total of 8 to 11 minutes per week. That's not per session, that's your cumulative total for the whole week. That's the dose that really seems to unlock those meaningful, long-term benefits. All right, let's talk about the big step. If you're ready to really commit, buying a tub can feel like a huge, overwhelming decision. But honestly, you can break it down into just 4 key things you need to think about. It's pretty straightforward. First, where are you going to put it? Second, who's using it and how often? Is it just you or your whole family? Third, what are your non-negotiables? Like, for me, good filtration is a must. And finally, you got to look at the true cost of ownership. And let's actually run the numbers on that cost, because it's pretty interesting. Yeah, the upfront price of a tub can look pretty steep, but if you compare that to paying for sessions at a wellness spa, say twice a week, your own home unit can actually pay for itself in less than a year. And after that, you're basically plunging for free. You know, at the end of the day, getting a cold plunge for your home isn't really about buying another piece of fitness gear. It's bigger than that. I love how the source material for this explainer put it. It's a decision about how seriously you take your recovery, your resilience, and your daily ritual. It's really an investment in yourself. So here's where we've landed. The science is solid. The protocols are getting smarter and more personalized. And the equipment to do it at home is finally accessible. Which really just leaves one last question. Is this just another wellness trend that's going to fade away? Or could this be your next powerful daily ritual?